You're listening to Civic Media. You can tune into any of our live shows on any radio station across the state with the Civic Media app. Find us in your phone's app store and listen anytime, anywhere.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With former Newman Catholic High School boys basketball coach Jeff Gress, I am Chad Holmes. Coming up, the timing a little bit different on our guests here this evening. We'll have both of our guests coming up in the first two segments of the second hour of the show. At 7:06 tonight, we'll be joined by the head boys basketball coach of the Marathon Red Raiders, Adam Jacobson. And then our student athlete guest after that at approximately 7:25, Wausau West High School senior Paige Anderson. So that's coming up here on the Big High School Sports Show. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm fired up here. I mean, we were just talking off air on some topics. And we got Tootsie Rolls, so we're all good to go.
There you go. Hey, let's jump right in. We'll start with boys basketball. In fact, in this first hour, we'll hit the boys basketball, the girls basketball, which had the brackets come out, and then the hockey, which started the playoffs last night. So we got plenty to talk about here in our first hour before we get to the guests coming up at the start of hour number two. But Wisconsin Valley Conference boys basketball, Marshfield is the conference champions. They are 10-0 in the conference, 16-5 overall. Stevens Point is second in the league at 7-4, 15-8 overall. Wausau West third, they're 6-5 in the conference, 15-7. DC Everest and Wausau East are tied for fourth, both at 5-5 in the conference. Evergreen's 11-11 overall. Lumberjacks are 16-5. Merrill is next at 2-8 in the conference, 10-11 overall, and Wisconsin Rapids 1-9 overall, 1-9 in the conference, 2-18 overall. But the biggest story is the team at the top of the conference, because I think it was a great week for Marshfield. They started with that 74-54 win at Stevens Point. Again, the margin kind of surprised me. Landon Lee 26, Valen Ramberg 16, Brooks Hinson 15, Jaden Awi 17 for Spash, Grant Shodenow 14. Then they had a non-conference game right after that on Saturday, beating Chippewa Falls 62-53. Brooks Hinson 19 points, Chris Pohl 17 points, 12 boards. And then last night had a chance to see them 59-39 over Wausau West. Hinson had himself a night. 22 points in the first half, 32 for the game. Griffin Lang led West with 10. But boy, I mean, that's a good week.
Well, and for Marshfield, every time I hear, talking to coaches about that team, and what I've seen out of them, they just can cater to whatever style they need to play to. And even I think it frustrates some coaches and players from time to time in the opposition, because it's like, they could just run and gun, and they don't, and they slow it down. So I sometimes, my opinion is a sign of a good team when you can adjust your styles, play a little bit different way, but still hold true to who you are. I think, that's a big deal going forward. I think it's what makes them so versatile, but I don't think you can ask much more. You have, Spash and West are also sitting up on the top of that conference in the top half, and they handled both of them very well. And the funny thing, when I listened to the broadcast last night, you could obviously tell by how you were describing that Hinson was going off, but they had, I don't think you said Lee didn't score, right?
He did not score.
Yeah. I mean, and he's can be another scorer.
He's the second leading scorer on the team.
They're just dangerous and deep, and I think this is kind of their time to make that run. So I'm not surprised they went 3-0 from the time we had the last show, and that they're sitting up with an unblemished record at the top of that conference.
Another great game was last Thursday. Double overtime, East beat West 75-72. Charlie Cayley 16 points, 13 boards. 5 East players in double figures. Griffin Lang 39 points, career high for Wausau West. East had a non-conference win against Fox Valley Lutheran, 62-43 last night. 5 East players between 9 and 13 points. Good bounce back for Wausau East, still without Nap Gazik.
And that's the point I was going to make. It's I think we talked last week on the show how big a deal it is for your players to fill holes, because this is the time when injuries and being sick can change the outcome of games, because you just don't have the same rotation, or players aren't playing the same, or they get thrown and jostled a little bit from a comfort level they had when all the guys were there for their rotation. So I think for East, a nice week. The overtime win, again, it doesn't matter where East and West usually are. That's a crosstown rivalry. Teams are coming at each other. And for East to get a nice win against West when you're down your best scorer and one of the other teams players has a career night, I think that's still a big deal. That's kind of the way you want it to go down. Finish it out in OT, or not in OT, finish it out with that last second shot, let somebody get it. And then they bounce back nicely against Fox Valley Lutheran.
Mixed bag for both Everest and Merrill. Everest, they lost to Hudson in a non-conference game. It kind of is interesting to me because, again, Hudson is a team in that same bracket. And when you lose at home 56-35, that says that Hudson team is going to be one to keep an eye on for everybody that's in that bracket. Xavier Edwards and Kate Felch had 12 in that game for Everest. They bounced back to beat Merrill last night, 65-46 in Merrill. Merrill had won in Wisconsin Rapids on Thursday, 52-37. E.J. Wykes, 28 points in that game. When you look at a lot of these teams, I think these two are examples. There seems to be some reasons for optimism at times, and then there's reasons where it's like, oh, there's still some work to be done.
Yeah, and that's what shows up definitely.
Everybody but Marshfield at this point,
right? Yeah, but that shows up what's in the scores. I still think the Valley's stronger than it has been in years past. It'll be interesting to see where it kind of moves them around in those playoff brackets when the computer seeds them. But for Everest, that's why you want to either stay closer or get the W against Hudson, because you don't want that score to reflect anything that slides you around a position in that seeding. But they bounced back and beat Merrill last night, and I would like to think that Friday they're going to get another Valley win against Rapids. For Merrill, I saw them play early on. Physicality, I think there's a lot of athleticism there. They're sitting at about a 500 overall record, but just haven't quite got the consistency. I think they're still dangerous where they're hanging around and being competitive, but just not quite over the hump. But for them, they're another team in this division or in this conference where they'll drop a division when playoffs come around. So having a good, strong conference season, maybe that record isn't at 2-8 quite where they want it. I think there's still a formidable foe for Valley teams that still have to play them, as well as when they dive into their Division II bracket.
And I do think Stevens Point is still one that's really interesting to watch. With Aui now getting implemented more, they did have that loss against Marshfield, but they did bounce back to beat Appleton East Monday 81-49, and then last night win in Rapids 78-42. Again, when you look at that team, I do think that in terms of being maybe when the brackets do come out this weekend, that's one that talent-wise may be underseeded.
Yeah, I think it very well could be. And the thing I like about, when you have a player come back or come to the team for whatever reason at a certain point in the season, you want to watch for that. Shift of power is a bad way to describe it, but you have your ducks in a row. You have the guys that are kind of deciding on how you're knocking down the baskets. Who's the alpha male, right?
Yeah.
So you want to keep that going while also adding those other people. And it seems to be where Shadna is still their leading scorer. He seems to be putting up the consistent points every night. Always back in that next spot a lot of times. So I think it looks like those pieces are hovering together and I do think, them along with even Everest a little bit with Preby coming back, kind of hitting their stride, and East will be another team that'll, jump a little bigger with Nimgezik back again once he gets over his illness. So I think that the consistency for these teams to be winning most of their games is a big deal as they try to put it all together as one piece and be totally ready for the playoff run.
Great Northern Conference, still plenty to play for the conference championship. You got Medford and Rhinelander 8-2. Medford 12-9 overall. Rhinelander 15-5. Mosinee right there 7-2 in the conference, 15-6. Pines 5-6 in the conference, 12-10 overall. Lakeland 4-7, 9-13. Antigo 3-6, 10-11, and Tomahawk 0-10 in the conference, 4-17 overall. And when you look at this league, Medford still is an enigma. They find ways to win these conference games, but even last night they lost to Menominee 94-52. I think when you look at what Mosinee does when they're at their best, it feels like they're a tougher team, but at the same time, yet they're still there. Rhinelander just seems to be able to win the games they have to win. Maybe sometimes not as impressively as, say, Mosinee when they're at their best, but Rhinelander, that 62-57 win on Friday against Lakeland was, again, an impressive win because they needed to win that game. But as you look at this league and, the results, none of the teams played each other this past week, but I know in Mosinee plays Rhinelander coming up.
Right.
But as you look at it, I mean, it just feels like maybe from the outside looking in, maybe Mosinee's got that highest ceiling. Rhinelander will always maximize, and Medford, I don't know.
You analyzed that very well because I was thinking the same thing. It's probably the most fun conference race we have left with the games being so close in terms of the Medford 8-2, Rhinelander 8-2, Mosinee at 7-2. But from what I've watched on the scores, I definitely agree with you. Mosinee is the strongest in their non-conference games, whether they're most competitive in the losses they've taken or just the schedules they've run where they've won a couple in a row based on playing tough competition and jumping around both in conference, out of conference. I think they are the most consistent at that and show up every time. Rhinelander, you said it well. They just get the job done.
And real quick, they went to Pines and gave up 29 points. Incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
Because Pines is normally a team that is able to score.
Right. So I think that, for Rhinelander, they just kind of get the job done, and they've been kind of blue collar like that the last couple of years where they're dangerous because you're not going to probably get rid of them, but do they have enough to put together that night to win it ugly or play pretty? They're all over the place. And Medford, I saw that score off Menominee last night.
Yeah, they give up 29 on Friday and 94 on Tuesday.
Yeah, and I was like, but again, for the conference race, I guess it doesn't matter because you're playing consistent and you're at the top of that conference for the GNC boys and should be with the games. I know they have Tomahawk left, and I'm not sure after that, so they're going to get a couple more wins there. But it's just that's the consistency when you get deeper into the playoffs. You're playing these bigger non-conference games technically. So where are you going to stand after that point? But everybody talks about Medford always well coached, and those kids are playing above what maybe they're supposed to be at. Like
the GNC, still a lot to be determined in the Merriwood South. You got Auburndale 12-1, still atop the conference standings, 20-1 overall. Stratford 11-2 in the conference, 19-2 overall. Marathon 10-3, 14-7. Assumption 6-7, 7-14. Edgar also 6-7, 8-12, and Newman 2-11, 4-16. You look at what has Auburndale done this past week? Actually, one of the game that was most impressive to me for Auburndale because they beat Athens Thursday in the crossover 52-39, but they played Pacelli on Saturday, and they trailed by 11 points at halftime, 29-18. They outscored Pacelli 39-20 in the second half to win. Only one loss so far, but I thought that was a very impressive comeback.
Yeah, and a tough non-conference opponent because Pacelli's no slouch in that area, and they've played some of the other teams in the area very well and have a good lineup and some of the kids they have as their nucleus in their rotation. And for Auburndale, it's just, again, another one of those teams for the Merriwood Conference. They're very blue collar. They just get the job done. Nothing's flashy. I watched them against Newman when I score kept one night, and it was just a matter of how disciplined basketball that they played. They offensively they move the ball well. Defensively, they're not going to give you any easy looks wherever you decide to take that shot from, if you can even get it off. So I can see where they might be down, make some adjustments. Or Coach Weinfurt is very good at adjusting what his team's able to do, and they got a nice win on Saturday, and that's why they continue to stay at the top. I like the matchup where they're playing Stratford, and or where Stratford's going to come along soon, and they're going to take some of these other teams where Stratford, got Rib Lake and turn around and had a non-conference game against Wyawega. I think that matchup against Auburn that's coming at the end of the season is going to be a big one. It's going to come wide out. The funny thing I found out, we always say this, the rankings are just for fun and entertainment.
Right.
Stratford with 2 losses is ranked higher than Auburndale with 1 loss. And
well,
interesting
speaking of
stuff.
Stratford, it feels like they are building. The 74-64 win over Rib Lake. I mean, they're starting to get some, I think, better offensive production. I thought they had they were a little hot and cold earlier.
Right.
They had Riley Spindler, 25, Drew Brusowitz, 18, Jed Henderson, 18 in that win against Rib Lake. And then they added a non-conference win last night, 55-37 against Wyowega Fremont. You know Auburndale, you know Stratford well. It feels like Stratford right now is maybe peaking at the right time.
Right, and Coach Schmidt is going to know. He knows this. You know, he came on the show and he gave us just great analytics on his kids. He knows them well. He pinpoints these little things for them to continue to work on throughout the season, and it makes a big difference coming down the stretch. And Stratford's always held in that conference really well defensively, and I think anytime you can get that extra offensive output, that makes a big deal going forward, and he seems like he's getting his team in the right spot right before playoffs roll around.
Marathon, a good week. We saw them on Friday night beat Phillips by a good margin, 83-58. Cody Radke, 22. Drew Thur, 17. Drew Wolfel, 16. J.J. Hakinen and Lane Abraham, 15 each for the Loggers. And then last night, a good non-conference win, beating Whitburn, 53-49, and we'll obviously have a chance to talk more with Adam Jacobson coming up. But what was your take on seeing Marathon in person?
Well, when I saw him against Phillips, I thought, again, just the great job, active hands and defensive positioning. They just always, Phillips had 2 scores, and they really flustered those guys. These guys could never get rolling the right way, made them speed up, play a little faster than they wanted to, and you could see the frustration out of the Phillips guys trying to get the ball in the basket. So Marathon, that's a credit to Marathon's defense. And then offensively, they just kept after it. They wore them down, triple post offense, trying to find those guys. Nice entry passes, put the ball in the right spot for kids to make moves. And even when we were talking as they went a little cold from the line, they really came around, started burying it. Certain guys started to bury those shots. And I thought good organization from a coaching standpoint of the offense and defense for Marathon that night, and I thought the kids executed really well, and you can see that in the score discrepancy. Phillips is one of the better teams in the Merriwood North, and they beat them 83-58. Other
teams in the Merriwood South had the crossovers again on Friday. Assumption got past Abbotsford 66-63. J.T. Schlafer and Logan Nystrom 20 for the Royals. Grayson Totsky 19 for the Falcons. Prentice got the 1 win for the Merriwood North, beating Newman 65-57. Evan Lord 24, Aiden Housey 23 for Prentice. Quincy Fender at 26 for the Cards. Lucas Piffner 22. And also Edgar. Edgar, again, maybe outplaying what their original prognostications were, and they rolled Shawamigan 87-55. Leighton Schuett 23, Carson Nowak 21. What about the bottom half of the conference?
Well, Assumption's interesting to me because they always talk about that class, and it just seems like, I've seen Abby play. I'd like to think that they could handle them by a couple more points than they did, but they just, I don't know, they don't seem to totally get over the hump yet. Every coach you talk to says they can be dangerous on a given night because of the scoring output they have. For Edgar.
Well, I'll give you a full report on Assumption next week because we got them Friday against Marathon and Monday against Newman, and maybe you'll get a chance to see them on Monday.
Well, and I'd like to see how they do against those 2 teams because I've seen those other 2 teams, Marathon and Newman, play enough. For Edgar, again, just playing well enough. They're 6-7 overall, sitting just at 500, and they got about 8-12. For their overall record, and beat Shawamigan like they should. I would have wanted to. They were supposed to play Iola last night. They got postponed. I would have liked to see how they did against them because we know where Iola's kind of stands in the Wittenberg-Bondwell Conference. And for Newman, I still like to see them just get over that hump. It's 50. A couple of these other games recently have been a little tighter, and it's just like they just don't put everything together yet. And when they could do that, I think they have enough scoring punch to be dangerous to win these games, but you can't have lapses in other areas of play.
Speaking of the Merriwood North standings, you got Rib Lake. They're going to win it. They're 10-3 in the conference, 14-6 overall. Phillips 7-6, and then 14-7 overall. Prentice 7-6 as well, 12-6 overall. Athens 4-9, 5-15. Abbotsford 2-11, 8-13. Shawamigan 1-12, 3-17. As I said, they only got 1 W in the crossovers. Phillips did bounce back from their loss to Marathon, beat 3 Lakes Monday, 67-58. But Rib Lake actually, to go to Stratford and play within 10, I actually think was, again, not knowing how the game exactly went, but still, I think Rib Lake has to feel like, hey, they went toe-to-toe against a really good basketball team.
And I saw Rib Lake play Newman. They have some good athletes up there. They got some bigger kids. They got some guys that get to the basket well. That night they could definitely hit the three. I don't know if that's consistent on any given night, but that's the one thing I was thinking, to go down to Stratford, only lose by 10, have a 10-3 overall record in the conference, and that's including their crossover games, is a nice job so far this season. They're 14-6 overall. The other part of the game that interests me that's going to come up is both Phillips and Prentice are sitting at 7-6. And they're going to get each other in their next conference game, so that'll be interesting to see. And Phillips, is 14-7, and Prentice is 12-6 overall. So I think most of their losses have come within the conference, probably to some of the South teams. So again, good competition up there in the Merriwood North.
CWC East, Bondwell still undefeated, 12-0, 20-0 overall. Wittenberg-Burnhamwood 10-2, 16-5 overall. Iola Scandinavia right there at 9-3 in the conference, 15-5. Shiocton 6-6, Menominee Nation 5-7, 12-9 overall. Shiocton 11-10. Wyowega Fremont 3-9 in the league, 6-15. Amherst 2-10, 7-15. Manawa 1-11, 6-16. One of the big games were Bondwell beating Whitburn Thursday night, 73-55. So they stay right there, and also a team that kind of fourth place. 6-6, 11-10, Shiocton. And they only lost by 3 to Iola Thursday, 66-63. And then one of those non-conference games last night that kind of caught my eye. Shiocton beat Pacelli by 12, which I was a little surprised. So, I mean, we talk always about Bondwell and Whitburn. Obviously, Bondwell still perfect. Whitburn, they've lost a few games, but they're playing some really good competition that should get them ready for the playoffs. But that Shiocton team actually kind of jumped out to show a little depth in that league.
Well, Shiocton's coached by, right? Chad Schmidt, which is Kurt Schmidt's from Stratford's brother.
I know, yeah.
I'm just saying. So, the success, and I know those two used to.
So you're not as shocked.
No, I'm not. No, because they've had some very good records over the past years, and again, he knows his stuff as well as his brother does.
Get his team ready at the end.
Yeah, so they, and that's what you want. But that's a nice win over a good Pacelli team. I mean, they're not an easy team to push over and get through, and to win by 12 against them is a good win. I'm curious to see how Wittenberg keeps bouncing back. Obviously, Bondwell's a very good team. They had not beaten them. They struggled against them the first time. Bondwell owns that conference, but they're sitting at a 10-2 record overall, 16-5 as their overall record. And then I was interested to see that the Marathon game was it was tight with 4 points. I mean, Wittenberg's not easy. Marathon's solid too. So I think for that they've taken 2 now, and then they got to roll around and play Iola again. They don't have an easy schedule here. And again, you want to be playing tough, but for players, it's a hard time of year because they want to see the the fact of the scoreboard at the end of the day for them. That kind of is what proves them. And for Wittenberg, if they're not getting out, but they're playing good competition, you got to have your players understand, like, hey, we're taking losses to good teams. It's not like we're playing bad and we're being competitive. So that's a big deal for them to bounce back against Iola on Friday.
And CWC North Tigerton still atop 7-0, 18-1. Northland Lutheran is 7-2, 11-7. White Lake 5-2 in conference, 10-6 overall. Boulder 3-5, 6-13. Gresham 1-6, 6-15. Marion 0-8 and 3-18. Monday, Northland put up 88 points. Put in those numbers, please. I'm sure somebody scored a lot of points.
Yeah.
88-64 win. Faith Christian had an opportunity Tuesday. They took Marion to overtime, but fell 58-55. So as they develop their program, be competitive, and that's what you want to try to do.
Yeah, that's a good route to go. Probably fitting in with some of these smaller teams in that conference will be a good start for them on their WIA journey to getting conference ready, maybe a full schedule. For Northern Lutheran, to catch Tigerton, they do get to play them again at the end of February. And so, but that's still, I know they're still down 2 losses. So if they win that game, they're going to need help from somebody else. But again, 7-2 overall in that conference. And we've talked about over the years how nice a fit that is for them. And they're going to, I just always find their schedule fascinating because you got conference game, and then all of a sudden they jump out to the bigger schools. And I want to see them get in the flow with some of those bigger schools because they do challenge themselves quite often in that.
We're going to take a 1-minute timeout, then come back and talk about the girls, talk about where the teams stand in the conference races, and also talk about the brackets that came out this past weekend as well. That's straight ahead here on the Big High School Sports Show, presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. On Thursday night, the playoffs begin for the Wausau West High School hockey team. The Warriors will play host to Superior in a Division I regional final. Hear all the exciting action live on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app, starting with the pregame show at 6:50 and the opening face-off at 7 p.m. Wausau West Hockey on 98.9 WXCO is brought to you by the Cloverbell Credit Union, Red Robin Restaurants, Sun Printing, the Wausau West Athletic Department, Coast to Coast Marketing, and the Wausau West Hockey Booster Club. It's Wausau West taking on Superior in a WIAA Division I Hockey Regional Final. Thursday night, starting with the pregame show at 6:50, opening face-off at 7 on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. K5 Construction is a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence. From design and planning to the final construction, K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, Big High School Sports Show. Again, both our guests will be coming up in the second hour. Marathon boys basketball coach Adam Jacobson will join us at 7:06. And then our student-athlete guest a little bit later tonight, as we'll be joined by Paige Anderson, the Wausau West senior, coming up at approximately 7:25. Talking about girls high school basketball, Wisconsin Valley Conference, Stevens Point Panthers are going to be the league champion. As Stevens Point is 11-0 in the conference, 20-4 overall. Then you got Marshfield at 8-2, 12-11. DC Everest is third at 5-5, 7-13. Wausau West 5-6, 7-16 overall. Actually, I think the Warriors are 6-6. I got to double check that. Sometimes these numbers on these pages are not always as accurate as we need them to be. Let me do this really fast because I believe in accuracy more than anything
I had
else.
5-6 too, though, but I think.
Yeah, they are 5-6. Why are they 5-6? When do they play again? I am now confused by that, but I'm gonna.
They play at Hudson. I think they're off till the 28th.
Yeah, because I mean, where's that 11th game? Because they do not have a game between now and the end of the regular season, and that's sort of odd.
It could have just not been posted.
Let me see. Notes on the Valley site.
God.
Wausau East is playing DC Everest, Merrill, Wausau West, and Wisconsin Rapids on a non-conference basis in the second half. Games versus Marshfield and Stevens Point have been canceled.
Okay.
So there you go. That's why I was confused by that. That's why I was confused. Wisconsin Rapids 4-6, 9-13. Merrill 1-9, 5-17. East 0-6, 0-13. So, Spash Thursday they played Regis. I kind of wish I would have seen this one because it looked like just a fantastic couple of individual performances. Spash beat Regis in OT 82-76. Jada Seibert, sophomore, 39 points. Ella Mae Cooper for Regis, 44. You don't see that very often in girls basketball.
Those are legitimate numbers that make memory. I mean, that's a lot of points between two players for opposite teams. For Spash, what I like about Spash is, early on they were jumping around their non-conference schedule right away to start off when we started the season off, and you're kind of like, well, where are they going to end up? And it shows they're 20-4 overall and 11 unblemished in the conference. And they're playing good competition. Regis is a good non-conference game, and they continue to roll in the Valley, which is why they're, seeded number 2 and going to be a formidable foe up in that. Usually we don't see some of those Valley teams get that high rank, and it's nice to see that they got the representation for the conference.
DC Everest, again, they moved to third place. I got to think that they would be very happy to be the third place team in the WVC. They rolled past Merrill 59-23 on Friday. Grace Sandquist, 17, Kirsten Hall, 14. I think that's been one of the good stories so far this year.
Well, right. And you want to see that out of players and teams and the coaches that are working with them is to be able to jump a little bit. We've talked about, and you just know where they stood the last couple of years in that conference. And to just finish higher than you were is a credit to everybody's hard work in that program, and it gives you promise of stuff, of expectations that can be set where that's what we want to attain each season and continue to get better. So I think they've challenged themselves. I think we've seen the defense do really well for them, and I think their next move is just going to make sure they always have that offensive output, because in any game that they've ever struggled, they came up a little bit short on that end. And I would have liked to see, I know the Mosinee game got canceled, but it was just kind of another, kind of maybe a benchmark. Whether they win or lose it, they can come out of there testing themselves a little bit and seeing the improvements that they've made this season.
Marshfield, interesting again. They had a good conference win. They beat West 79-47. They were in control of that one. Zeta Colbeck 20, Ayla Christensen 21, Paige Anderson 14 for the Warriors. But Thursday, a game that kind of jumped out to me. They lost to Kaukauna 45-43. And the thing that jumps out is Kaukauna is a number 14 seed in their bracket. For Marshfield, you just can't lose that game at this time of the year.
No, and it shows us the scariness of what we always worry about in these bigger divisional playoffs is when you get over to the Fox Valley, you get out of your area, how are you going to compete? Well, that score's not what you want. I mean, you lost to a team that's seated lower than you are, and just a difficult one. And I think after you get past Spash, those are teams that you could see some upsets based on how they've played throughout this year. Not to say they've had 8-2 in the conference is a good mark for Marshfield. They're above 500. They are a middle of the road with I think they're an 8 seed. So I think.
And by the way, when I say Kaukauna is a 14 seed, I was just looking here in the Fox Valley Association. Kaukauna is 10-7. They're 12-11 overall. They're not in the same bracket. They're in sectional 2. Marshfield and the other Valley teams,
right.
Sectional 1. But that says to me that, holy cow, sectional 2 must be full of good basketball teams, because when you have in the FVA, you're 10-7. I mean, you got great teams. You got Kimberly, who's undefeated in that conference. Hortonville's has been very good in recent years. They're second. Nina, of course, has been really good. Appleton East as well. I mean, 14 seed. Wow. I mean, I'm almost tempted to delve in to see the computer got some bad numbers in that one.
Well,
so I shouldn't say it was a bad loss for Marshfield. I guess I was judging by the 14 seed.
On paper, with looking at numbers, yes. But it just shows that, we've talked about that before, where you're out of your area, things, games look a little different in different parts of the state. And there's some obviously very competitive areas in the state that might be different if you're not in central Wisconsin. It just depends. So that 14 seed could not maybe be a big deal. That might be a good competitive game for Marshfield. But we'll see going forward if they ever get far enough to compete against each other.
Great Northern, Lakeland 12-0, 20-4 overall. Mosinee 9-2, 16-5. Rhinelander 7-4, 13-10. Medford 6-5, 12-11. Tomahawk 4-7. Pines 1-10. Anago 0-11. I mean, Rhinelander's really fallen on hard times. I mean, they fell to Lakeland 70-15 on Friday. Christina Wilmette, 28 points for Lakeland. You got Mosinee 64-17 over Tomahawk. Taylor Jersley 31. Britt Fitzgerald 14. Big win for Mosinee on Monday. Beating Rice Lake 57-50. Jersley 21 points. Lakeland beat Shawano last night 58-44. Right now top heavy, and when I say top heavy, Lakeland and Mosinee in that conference.
Yeah, and I guess I was most impressed with that Rice Lake win, because Rice Lake is the number 1 seed in their sectional. I think it is ahead of Lakeland and ahead of Mosinee.
That is exactly right.
Is that right?
Yep, and that's quite a statement.
Well, that's what I was thinking when I saw that Mosinee beat them, and that's a big deal going into that, just for confidence. I mean, the seeds are already what they are,
right?
But for confidence level, I think that's a huge thing for Mosinee, and they're playing good basketball. They beat Tomahawk. They should have. The big Rice Lake win. I feel for like you said, for Rhinelander. I don't know if they're going to get the Clark girl back by the end of the year,
but they have just really had troubles.
You can just see that her scoring is a big deal. And I guess you could also say at the same time, they've held it together as best they can. They're 7-4 in the conference, and they're still 13-10 overall. For Lakeland, continuing to own the conference, they're going to win that one. And just with Wilmette and company scoring a lot of points, they're going to sew that up with Rhinelander. Sew that up with rolling into their playoffs and make a deep run.
Merriwood South Assumption 15-0, 22-1 overall. Stratford 13-2, 19-4 overall. Auburndale 12-3, 19-4 overall. Marathon 10-5, 18-5 overall. Edgar 4-11, 8-15 overall. Newman 2-13, 3-18 overall. They had some again crossovers Thursday and Friday. The South won 5 of the 6 games. We had Marathon and Phillips, 69-65 Marathon over Phillips. Your take on the Raiders?
I was going to say that was the biggest one I thought of all the games. Assumption, Stratford, Auburndale should have won the ones that they won, but for Marathon, again, we did the game on air, live on air, and it was just a good come out and execute and kind of take care of business. And even when it got a little bit to where they bent a little bit, but they didn't break, and that definitely came up with a couple key turnovers, and Phillips had a couple girls that were kind of starting to feel their groove and knock down the shots that they needed to, but Marathon always kept them at bay, and it was a nice win in their gym over the number 1 team in the Merriwood North, and I think that was a big win in terms of playoff implications, and just for Marathon to get that, Coach Snyder talked about it afterwards in the post game, and we mentioned it earlier, they've won games they're supposed to win, and they need to get some of those signature ones, and that was one of them, and it leads them to be 18-5 overall, and a big conference win for them.
An Assumption earned a big win last night, beating Aquinas 73-70. 4 Royals in double figures. Sarah Shaw 21. Obviously, Assumption just 1 loss. Aquinas, they're now 19-4, but to go over there to La Crosse and earn a win is really a good one to us launch into the playoffs.
Yeah, against a bigger divisional school. I thought it'd be a tight game. I didn't really think Assumption could come out because they play on that side of the state. And I thought maybe a little bit brand of tougher basketball, a little more physicality over there. And again, they're a bigger school, and so for Assumption, you got to give them credit to go over there and knock off an Aquinas team with a good record and a good standing in their conference, and do it on the road on a Tuesday night over to La Crosse is not an easy thing. So nice win for Assumption. That puts them at 22-1 for the season.
Merriwood North, you got Phillips leading the way, 11-4, 17-6 overall. Rib Lake 9-6 in the conference, 2 games back. Prentice 7-8. Abbey at 4-11. Athens 2-13. Shawamigan 1-14. Obviously, Phillips. Watching Phillips Friday, I don't see a deep run. Am I off the mark? Because I just thought there were a few things out there that I kind of would be concerned about. And I think even more than the X's and O's is maybe the way they struggled emotionally with some tough defense at times.
Yeah, I thought Marathon was scrappy that night. They caused a lot of frustration based on their aggressive defense, I guess I would say, and it made Phillips get off their game. They couldn't get out in the open floor as well as they wanted to. They took a lot of contested shots. They had to force a lot of extra shots on stuff. So I thought for the Marathon girls, they did a nice job and got up and took Phillips out of their game, which I think it shows that if one, you're going to learn from that. Other teams are going to watch that game, and then they're going to use that to do the same rattle of those of their scores. And Eckert was, she got going towards the end, but it took her a while, and keeping her at bay and making things difficult for her put a lot of pressure on her teammates. And I think one of the best things was they didn't allow her to get scoring, and early on she had some good passes right away early on, and then they started taking away those angles, which I thought made a big difference. So I would agree with you because they're going to have to go through some of those similar teams. I'm pretty sure Marathon's in the same bracket, right, as Phillips is. So could be.
We'll talk about it in just a moment.
Yeah, could be a little challenging is what I'm saying.
CWC East, one team remains in the state that is undefeated, and that's Wittenberg-Burnhamwood, and they stayed that way with a huge win. First, let's give you the standings. 13-0 Whitburn, 23-0 overall. Bonduel, 11-2, 17-5. Then Wyowega Fremont at 7-6, so big gap between 2 and 3. Menominee Nation, 6-7. Amherst, 5-8. Iola Scandinavia, 4-9. Shiocton, 3-10. Manawa 3-10, but Friday night Whitburn went to Bonduel, and again we talked about that game last week about great test. Just be undefeated. Go into the house of the team that's closest to you in the conference and win 67-45. And the thing about it that jumped out more than anything else is, I think every game this year, and again, I should have gone back and looked at it. It was either Milena Granquist or Rory Salveson that led the team in scoring. I think almost every game. It's like those two would almost be the same. But Harper Rogowski had 17 to lead the way in that game. Granquist 13, Salveson 11. Obviously, at this time of the year, you need that third player, don't you?
Oh, and you want, again, the more guys that can step up or somebody that's unexpected to step up because they go after your scores. Coaches are coming up with a game plan to keep guys in check. And when you can have 2, 3, 4 kids in double figures in any way, especially for Wittenberg. We just look at it on paper. It's constantly Granquist and Salveson averaging 20 and 18 a game. So when somebody else pops up in a big game like that, that's a big deal going forward because in those playoffs, as you get farther and farther along, you're technically supposed to see better and better teams and new strategies and things that coaches are going to throw at you. And it's it's all about that response and consistency, and can teams fill the void or change up something on the fly that they haven't done or experienced. And I thought it was a big deal for Wittenberg it's a statement win when you go over to Bonduelle, and that's the next team in the conference, and you win by 22 points. So good win for them. And they continued to roll in all their other games that they had. Yeah, throughout the rest of the week till now.
The 2 non-conference games were not against the top level competition, but they're 23-0. And something real fast, and I was thinking about this earlier today. I don't know, Coach. Have you ever had an undefeated team? Get on the microphone for a second here. I got a question for you.
He's in early.
Why not? We will have the official interview at 7:06. But did you ever have a team that went deep into the year undefeated?
We did. 14-15, we were 22-0 because you played 22 at that time. Played Auburndale in a regional final, lost 38-35, and they went to the state tournament.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
Yeah.
But real fast, when you do have a team that is undefeated at the end of the season going into the playoffs, because I was thinking today, for Wittenberg-Burnham, for the girls, there's going to be one or two things. They're going to finish up an incredible year, win a Go Ball undefeated. You talk about winning the trifecta, the lottery, or they're going to be undefeated, and then you're going to lose the final game of the season. How do you look at going into this situation? How do you maybe take the pressure off some of these kids when, they got to know it in the back of their head that they're the only team in the state right now in girls basketball that's undefeated?
Yeah. It's a good place to be, right? But I think we talked about it with our guys last year. The goal is to win every game, right? You go into every game with the intent of winning, but the goal is not to go undefeated. And at times it's not a bad thing. We were talking about it as coaching staff today. Sometimes when you lose, you peel that onion really, really, really far to try to figure out what's wrong. And sometimes, winning masks some bad habits or things like that. But once again, your goal is to win every game. The difficulty is trying to take the pressure off, right? And just realize, hey, we're just out here to play the best we can possibly play. We're fortunate to win every game to this point, but just try to alleviate the pressure and play your best basketball when it matters most.
Very good. Anything to add?
What was it? I always found, when we started off 4-0 in the season, then we lost that fifth game. Just kidding. That's about as far as we made it. But do you feel? How do you think the players deal, or coaches or anybody? Because it's twofold. You feel good and confident because obviously things are rolling in the right direction to get those high marks, but there's a target on your back, and at any point, especially this far for Wittenberg, they're 23-0. You don't want that one. You don't want to lose that 24th game going into the playoffs and then like you said, how far do you go back? So, when you guys were at that 22-0 mark, did you feel a lot? Was there a lot of pressure there? Would you say?
Yeah, looking back on it, I certainly learned a lot. I think I maybe put too much pressure on the kids. You don't feel like you are at the time. You don't think you're overthinking it, but then in hindsight, so then looking back on it now, and when we try to schedule, it's not like you're trying to find losses or anything, but it's okay to not go undefeated. It's okay to get that pressure off. I think of the Badgers when they went to the national championship that one year. I think they lost 3 times, like one early, one in the middle, one late. It didn't change anything. They still won the Big Ten, still won the Big Ten, all that. So it's like, it's not bad to maybe have a loss in there.
Let's talk quickly about the brackets. Did you take a look at the brackets?
Yes, I got some written down.
Okay,
so go for it.
Well, Division I, and again, when we talk about these computers, and I was a little bit. I said to somebody, if they would have had a coaches meeting, there's no way that DC Everest is behind Wausau West, but they are. And actually, in the end, I think it may be something that's good for Everest because they got a 15 seed. So they play the first round game against the lowest seed at home. They play Appleton West. They're 15 seed. You got Rapids at 14, West at 13 at the bottom end of the scale. And then you got Stevens Point, who's a number 2 seed, which is very impressive against some of these other schools, and Marshfield at number 8. But the first thing I thought of is Everest got the short end, but maybe you want to be in that game because obviously you would love to get a win. And I think for a building program like Coach Lauren Bolus has, this may be, in some way, a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's tough when you feel that the computer has not done its justice. It sounds like most of the time it does, but we can go through situations over the years where stuff isn't where it's supposed to be. And I think, easier said than done because I'm outside looking in and I'm not part of that program. But with the buildup that they made from the bottom of the conference to the middle of the pack, they're hanging in that third place spot right now from last season. I think that a first round playoff win would be nice. It's just going to add something that they can build because I think along those lines when you're first starting that program off, you're trying to give justification to the players that the reason we're doing things and what we're trying to execute and what we're trying to become and the philosophies we're trying to go off of is to all gain that success that you hopefully builds and carries on into the off season and into the next season that the kids are going to want to be unbreakable, so to speak, and what they're going to want to work. So I think a first-round playoff game is going to be a big deal for
We're going to talk more
DC
about
Everest.
the specific matchups later, but I just want to get some general impressions on some of these seedings. Division 2, you got, as you said earlier, you got Rice Lake, who Mosinee beat this week. Obviously, it was after the seedings came out, number 1. Then Lakeland, number 2. Mosinee, number 3. Rhinelander, number 5. Antigo, in the bottom bracket, Antigo's 9. Merrill is 9 in that same bracket. East 11, Medford 6. But I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if you even know it or even Coach would know it. Rhinelander has been missing one of their best players, and we don't know if she's coming back. Does the computer take note of that for seeding? Maybe and I imagine coaches may take note of that if they had a meeting, right?
Oh, definitely. Coach can attest to this 100 times better than I can, but yes, because you could argue and state your case that we were missing this player for this many games, it changes your season.
But if you're out, maybe you'll earn a number 5 seed, but without that player, all of a sudden you're not the same team.
No,
your leading scorer, 23 points per game. You're obviously not the same. You go back to college football a couple years ago. That's why they kept Florida State out, because they lost their quarterback. They said, hey, you're not the same team, so you're not getting in.
Well, and if you look at Rhinelander, their scores have changed since as long as we figured out Clark's gone. That their scores have changed a lot. She's a 20-point scorer game, obviously a huge part of their offense, and they're struggling to score in the 20s sometimes. And we'll see that could go twofold, though, because you might find yourself as a sleeper in the middle of the pack there at that 5-4 game, which is sometimes a push game. And if she's back in any way, that could change the whole complexity of the team, and then they could maybe get their foot in the door. But the computer, and Coach again can correct me if I'm wrong, will not take into account that injured player. It's going to go on your wins and losses straight the schedule.
Strictly numbers.
Yeah. In Division 3, Whitburn, of course, is a number 1 seed. Their area teams, Tomahawk 6, Amherst 7, Pines 10. First thing you look at is who's number 2, because Freedom, and they've had some issues. Freedom's been better in the playoffs than Whitburn in recent years. Whitburn's has some really good teams, but they have not been able to knock through that door yet. And again, that's something you wonder about until it's actually done.
Well, even last year, and I know Wittenberg got beat up a little bit and had some kids playing injured and sick at the end of last season when they were still doing really good. But you just don't know. It's we don't follow those teams a lot. Freedom's, Wrightstown, some of those teams are pretty good in that girls' side of the bracket. I'm also always amazed, one thing on these seedings things is how you always got these big games seem to happen. Like there's always 1 or 2 big games afterwards that could have had huge, like the Rice Lake game. Mosinee beats Rice Lake for the girls' side. They end up being the number 1 seed, but Mosinee at the 3 takes them down in the game.
And that's really interesting because
they're not ahead of time.
I don't know if that would have affected, because now Mosinee plays Lakeland in a regional final. It could have been maybe Lakeland gets the 1 and Rice Lake gets the 2, or maybe Mosinee gets the 2.
It could change things, is what I'm saying. But I want to see Wittenberg again with that mark. They are really rolling, and I think they're just dangerous when we talk about the two girls that can score, but there's some other key cogs on that team that make them go to that undefeated record, and they're just solid the way they play.
And Division 4, and you see a lot of Merrillwood Conference South teams get pretty decent seedings. You got Marathon, a number 3 seed in their bracket. They're in sectional number 1. They will face either Abbotsford or Cadott in their first game a week from Friday. You got Edgar at number 7 in that bracket. Phillips from the Merrillwood North, number 4. So and they're part of that bracket. Cameron is number 1 seeded. McDonald Catholic number 2. And then in sectional 2, you got Auburndale, number 3 seed, which shows, I think, a pretty tough bracket because they got number 2 seed Bonduelle. Really, the only team they've had any issue with so far this year is Wittenberg-Burnham, and then, of course, St. Mary Catholic, the number 1 seed. So I would say that Auburndale may got the short end of the stick in terms of sectional placement.
Yeah, they have a tough one to go. I mean, they have a good conference record at 12-3, 19-4 overall. That's a really good record, and they're number 3. So sometimes that computer also shows that the strength of the teams in that area. And again, interesting to see how all that gets mapped out.
And real quickly, I forgot to mention, I mean, it's weird. I mean, we always talk about Auburndale, Marathon, and Stratford on the boys' side in the same bracket. You got Auburndale, Marathon, and Stratford in 3 different sectionals on the girls' side. I mean, because sectional number 3, Stratford, number 4 seed. And like Auburndale, great regular season, but they got they got Neelsville as the number 1 seed. You got Aquinas as the number 2 seed. Bangor, number 3 seed. So again, I think maybe Stratford would love to have been together, maybe with Marathon and Edgar and Auburndale in one bracket.
Well, again, they had a 19-4 overall mark, 13-2 in the conference, and doing very well. And so I think that where you go and where it's set up regionally can really make a difference. I mean, I was just sharing with a little selling point to one of our parents. I said, at Newman, you have a nice system. You play in the very tough Merrillwood, and then you don't have to be like Marathon, Stratford, and Auburn. They'll go wail on each other in the play. You get rid of them after you go play your heart out in the regular season against them. You're going somewhere else, and I'm sure. So sometimes it's great competition, but we want to see somebody else, and at least they get that way. But it doesn't get any easier.
And speaking of which, Division 5. Assumption, number 1 ranked team in the state, number 1 seed. They will wait for the winner of number 9 Northland Lutheran and number 8 Loyal. Newman is a number 12 seed in the bracket. They play Greenwood. Athens, number 13 seeded. They travel to Alman Bancroft. And obviously, it's an interesting bracket because you have Pacelli down at the bottom at number 2 seed. And, of course, Pacelli is the only team that beat Assumption this year.
Yep. So I think something for Pacelli to hang their hats on as that gets closer. If the 1 and 2 matchup make it into that final. Versus, Assumption's just a tough guard. The way they press, the way they push the ball, the way they just get their hands on a lot of errors that they make the other team do. And I think it'll be interesting to see when they finally gain a little competition because they seem to roll these last couple of years very early over the teams that they face early on in the playoffs.
Well, we're going to take a timeout for an information update at the top of the hour. But then coming up in hour number 2, we'll start off with the head boys basketball coach of the Marathon Red Raiders, Adam Jacobson. And then after that, we will be talking to our student athlete guest for this week, senior from Wausau West, Paige Anderson. So that's all coming up. Hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show, presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
And welcome back. It's hour number 2 of the Big High School Sports Show, 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Coming up a little bit later on in this hour, we'll be talking to our student-athlete guest for this week, Wausau West High School girls basketball senior Paige Anderson. But to start off the hour, we're very happy to welcome into studio the head boys basketball coach of the Marathon Red Raiders, Adam Jacobson. Coach, thanks for coming on by.
Thanks for having me. It's good to join you guys every year.
It's always, and we always kind of wait till towards the end of the year to bring you in because you get a lot of great basketball in the Merriwood Conference South, and it looks like this year again it's an outstanding conference, and you see Auburndale and Stratford and Marathon, and I would say even Assumption is a team that's got great talent. I think Edgar's playing well. Newman can fill it up at times. How would you judge the conference so far this year?
Yeah, it's really balanced, night in and night out, and even with the North. And I know they're even pretty young teams. I think 4 of the 6 bring pretty much everybody back. But yeah, I think I listened to Coach Weinfurter earlier in the year, and we're talking, and the top may not be as high as it's been in the past, but the bottom's certainly not as low as it's been in the past. So it's more condensed, but teams are having a great year. Like you said, Auburndale 20 wins, and Stratford approaching 20 wins, and I think we're getting better, and Edgar's got great athletes, and Newman can really fill it up, and Assumption with Schleifer and those guys, a lot of experience. And I think you're going to see that in March. I think you're going to see some teams make some runs.
I hope when you said you were listening to Coach Weinfurt, it was on this show.
Yeah, I did listen.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, you got to be one of the few guests too, where you show up a little early because you're always on time. And being early, it just says something that the Marathon players and coaches always make it a point to be in the studio. And I think it's just cool. It becomes more of a conversation here sometimes when you're talking on the phone a little differently. Not that we won't accept people that way, but it's a little different. And so I always appreciate that and the insight you were able to give before. Your team so far, I saw, obviously I got to call a game with Chad against Phillips, and I thought you guys just did an outstanding job of hands in the right places, flustering guys. I mean, you really took those, a couple of Phillips scores, they didn't get comfortable, and it's when we're rooting for you guys, it's fun to watch when your kids are doing that and making it just a frustrating circumstance for their team. But I also was impressed on the offensive end with just the way the ball got placed in good spots to lead the score almost to the basket. Your post-entry passes, the patience, maybe one more snap of the ball when a kid did have a pretty good look, but he waited because he knew he could get a better look, and the rotation on that offensive movement. What right now do you really like about your team? You always talk about that. We're continuing. I heard your pregame, I think, with Chad that night, and you were talking about I can just see us getting better and better, and that's what you want to be doing at this point in the season. So tell us about what you really like about what you're seeing out of your team right now.
Well, I'm glad you saw those two things because those are certainly things we want to work on. And I think our defense has improved. High hand closeouts, playing in space. Yeah. With young guys, a lot of times you think you're guarding your guy. And defense is easier when you do it right, when you can play in space and you can move and you can, take cut corners. Otherwise, you're working so hard, you're in quick stand, and it's getting worse and worse. So defense, certainly. Offensively, I really was happy on that, and it even improved last night. We're finding ways to get easy baskets. We missed 40 shots at Pacelli that one week, and everything's so hard, right? Yeah. So we really worked at, getting the ball in the middle, making the extra pass, the one more, and I really thought Phillips last night, through ball movement, through reversal, through in and out, we're able to find easier baskets than having to just hope we make shots or anything. We're getting to the foul line. So I'm glad that stood out, and I think that, and then individually, guys are just getting better. You get more confident, you're stronger with the ball, and probably overall our toughness has improved, both mentally and physically. We can handle the ball better, we can handle pressure better. Mentally, we can handle the ups and downs of the game better. So I really like where we're at with that.
And I did one other thought. You've done this long enough where you see what you have to replace when you lose stuff to graduation. And I think sometimes it's a tougher do you ever see a tough transition? Because, for example, you lost a lot of guys that have done a lot of offensive damage for you and defense, and were just great for your team through graduation last year. And then, like, for guys like Wolfel and Thurs, they'd always had to be the younger guys. And I think sometimes it's nice to be the younger guys because those aren't maybe always the first line of things that teams are coming after. And you can kind of sneak in there as a sophomore and find your openings. And now this year they have to step up and take on those roles. Do you ever find that that's a tough learning curve, or is there ways that you've gone about that? Because you've had teams like that over the years where graduation comes, you can't do anything about it, and the younger guys got to keep stepping up. But Marathon always just seems to reload, and guys just keep coming. I think that's a credit to your program. How about what you see?
Yeah, I think it's extremely underrated in that regard. You're bringing young guys in, you get them up to speed in film, but True and Drew, for example, some of it's unfair. Like, they're just going to step in and carry that load. Well, that's a completely different role as well. Just like a sophomore coming in or a junior coming in, learning how to be varsity. Well, they also have to learn how to be the number one or the number two, or guard that opponent's best player and all that. And I was talking with Coach Konitsky from that with Columbus Catholic with his son Mac. He came back. Well, he's got a whole plethora of things on his plate now, so sometimes it's unfair to that kid that, they're just going to step in there and do it. Well, they're learning a whole new role as well. So yeah, great analysis, great thought on that. It's difficult. Everybody's got a new role on a new team, whether they're back or not, because their role's completely changed. Yeah.
Along the same line, actually going beyond that, because I think in a lot of ways you're talking about the roles on the court. I think off the court can be probably as difficult, where you have a chemistry of a team, where you have to have certain leaders. It's always great to have leadership, where it's not always the coaches leading the way. You want to have some player-driven leadership as well. I imagine that could be just as big a factor in winning and losing than what we see on the court.
Absolutely. Communication, your mental toughness. Yeah. And when you have, in our case, sophomores, juniors, seniors collectively coming together as a team, maybe they're not in the same sports. Maybe they're not in the same classes. Maybe they're, they haven't known each other very well, and trying to build that, and then innately finding some leadership, right? You try to build that over the course of the summer and your workouts and your leagues and your stuff like that, and who's standing out, who's leading, both vocally and, physically as well. But yeah, that's all the makeup and molding of a team. And, you try to find ways throughout the season to find ways to team build. And I thought that really stood out. I told our assistants tonight, I thought our guys had fun and enjoyed and you hope that, right? This is going fast. This is winding down fast. Not only enjoy what you're doing, enjoy it with who you're with.
Again, we're talking to Adam Jacobson, head boys basketball coach at Marathon High School, here on the Big High School Sports Show, presented by K5 Construction.
And I've been waiting. Coach Chad and I were talking off air a little bit. We wanted to hear your take on the Wittenberg game. I mean, nice win. Looks like it was a tight one. I didn't see much on it other than the final score. Happy that you guys got that game against a good non-conference opponent. What did you see out of your kids last night? How'd that game go down?
Yeah, it was a heck of a game. It was a playoff game, right? It was Wittenberg is athletic and physical and multiple. They switch a lot, and Jet Rogowski's a tremendous guard. It was just a battle. It was 20-20, and then I think we went into the half up 4, and then we came out and they hit us in the mouth, and we got down 10, and then we made some plays, crawled or scratched our way back, and then just executed tremendously down the stretch. Probably a game, if I'm honest, we probably would have lost earlier in the year, right? Things would have went downhill. Maybe we would have gotten our own head and worried about that. But we went next right thing, moved on, made some plays, executed, were tough with the ball at the end, rebounded really well, and made some free throws, and then got stop after stop at the end. So a really high-quality non-conference game that we really hopefully gained a lot of confidence from, because that's how you have to win in March, right? You got to win in the half court. You got to rebound. You got to take care of the ball. And when push comes to shove, you got to make plays and execute. And we did, and I was very happy for our guys.
You've had plenty of practice in those kind of games.
Yeah.
I was counting 9 games.
By one possession.
I mean, it's been just amazing.
You've been counting too.
I mean, there's a lot of pressure situations. I imagine that there's been some ups and there's been some downs, but in the end, I imagine that it puts you in a pretty good space going into some big games to wrap up the regular season, and then, of course, in the postseason as well.
Yeah, you sure hope it hardens you. And I think I told somebody last night, I think we won that game because of East, because of Mosinee, being in those fires and getting paddled at times, right, and having to respond, and I having the conference we're in and the non-conference games and being in those fires, and unfortunately, coming up short. But once again, you got to peel that onion. You got to look from within, and we have to get better at this. We have, and we have. So you hope that over the body of work as we get into March here, and that was the whole goal all along, who we're going to become when we become to March. I love who we've become. I love where we're at, but it still comes down to 36 minutes on a night, and who we are on that night. But give the kids a ton of credit. They've hung in there. They've gotten better. They take each day as a challenge and put themselves in a position to be successful. And, we still got 3 high-quality opponents with Assumption, Edgar, and Auburndale to finish this up. But, yeah, the fact of the matter is we've played a lot of close games. Some of them you wish you had. You're greedy as a coach, right? You're like, we're 4 possessions away from 4 more. But those have made us a better team.
You mentioned the East and the Mosinee games because I want to ask you about that. You kind of touched on it, but I was going to ask you about that after the close games. Marathon's not used to being in a situation like that where you look up and there's a running clock.
47-3.
Right. I mean, it's just really one of those situations you're not used to. How did you take those games to try to lift your team? Because you can go 2 ways in those situations. Confidence is a big factor at times, and sometimes those games can take a little bit of the confidence, but at the same time, as you said, harden maybe a little bit. How did you handle that? Because I don't think you've probably been in that situation too often in your years at Marathon.
Yeah, the first thing is compete, right? However it shakes out, you're playing the next possession. And I really thought, after getting down, especially the East one early, we battled, and they kept coming at us, which I was very happy they did, and I thought we responded. And then the Mosinee wasn't a great start, but we played really well as we settled into that. So you can't simulate that athleticism or that physicality or that, and obviously in athletics things snowball, right? But that's all a learning curve and mental toughness. Yeah. All part of the process, all part of learning. But like you said, you can't be deterred by it. You have to go out there, you have to compete, you have to learn from it, and nobody's going to feel sorry for you. We got to get better, and I think we have. And,
Marathon basketball is just, it's obviously a staple in the Merriwood Conference. People talk about it like you can't. You're always there. That team is always there. In the area, they talk about it. You have rich tradition. You see it from your lower levels into all the way up to your high school ranks. What are some things that, from what you've developed, from what's you've added on to what makes Marathon basketball such a neat place to play? I mean, because you always have a lot of kids out. Yeah. People, I think the kids take tremendous, you can see it. You have a lot of kids out, which is a good sign. You have a tremendous amount of pride in it. The kids play hard. People that know basketball know what it's about because they've seen it year in and year out with this consistency of this high level of basketball and the success that follows it. What are some of the staples that just make it a special program? What are you proud of with it?
Yeah, well, we talk a lot about that. We talk proud past, promising future, right? And we celebrate that. We celebrate that past, and kids want to be a part of that, and they want to work for that, and they want to feel that. And like last year's group, they were in middle school when that team in 18 went to the state championship. They wanted that. They wanted to feel that. So that builds it. But you hit it on the head with a lot of pride, right? A ton of support. You come into our gym. Tuesday, it's a cold day. People could have easily stayed home and watched it online, but they're there. Our student section, they're there. I know a lot of people battle that, the students aren't there. We don't have that problem. Our kids want to come and support, and we're very thankful for that, and kids are very grateful for that, and they that motivates them, right? And we have tremendous buy-in, tremendous support from families that, strength in numbers. They're going to work and improve, and yeah, so it's just a tremendous amount of passion and pride and just want to play hard, and that's a big thing. We have our core standards of an attitude of toughness, a championship work ethic, humility, unity, and character. And we harp on that a lot. We talk about it at basketball camp. We talk about it at Little Red Raiders. That's what you're signing up for. And we try to embody those characteristics of our program night in and night out. And we'll even say, how's humility going to get us through this game on Friday? How can a unified team help us on Monday? And we want to build off of that. And just very thankful, a lot of gratitude. Can't thank enough for the support we've had.
got a deep rotation this year, which is not unusual. Whenever you come in, and I pulled up the numbers, and you see great balance. But I mean, you just look down the line. I mean, everybody sort of, even the ones that are a bit lower on the scoring sheet, we see them out there doing good things. I mean, I think like Logan Peters, like the 8th leading scorer, he came out there and had a really nice job against Phillips the other night. As you look at this group, what impresses you? Maybe if there are some names you'd like to throw in there, what has impressed you about this group this year?
Well, our depth, certainly. We have a lot of balance. It starts with our 4 seniors, right? You have Cody Radke, he's a 3-year player. River Stanek, he's worked his tail off and just gotten better, and plays big minutes for us off the bench. Blake Kraft and Wilson Marks were off the bench the last couple of years. Blake's a captain for us, and Wilson's tremendously high character, 4.0 student. So they bring it every single day, and that great attitude, great effort, great energy we feed off of. And then you got True and Drew, who are 3-year players, played 70-some varsity basketball games already in their juniors, and played in so many different environments. And Landon Snyder, he's a 2-year player, and then you get into our sophomores, right? And those sophomores now are hopefully juniors. And, so that's, any given night, which is a good thing. We don't necessarily have the guy who's maybe, going to give us on every given night, but we've had guys bounce for 20, each, and 8 different guys have led us in scoring this year, and that's just they're going to continue to evolve, and I hope that continues to have depth. Our JV's had a great year, our JV2, and we've been playing some JV3 games, so hopefully that just continues to elevate play.
Well, Cody Radke had a season high with Gress in the box, so I think that was the key.
Yeah, he had 19 last night too.
Back to back.
He's doing well.
Yeah.
I like the fact that you allude to for being a smaller school in the area. You alluded to the deep number of JV. Yeah. It's a JV1, 2. Do you have 3 too?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's
try to play 4 levels when we can.
Yeah, but that's sometimes still in this age when you see teams at a lot of schools cramping size, and you only get those number of teams out of some of the bigger schools. I think that's nice to see. Another credit to the program, and I think that's a big deal. So I think as much as we talk about the players and the standards that are set and the expectations that everybody has, I think it would be hurting if we didn't talk about great assistant coaches too. And I think we mention this every year, but I just, at the tail end of my career, it's every year some guy just can't commit the whole time. They're like, it's too long, Jeff. I want to be there, but I can't. And you're searching for that next person that's that person in your corner, as well as a great fit for the kids, as well as somebody that embodies the school's basketball program and the standards you want them to uphold. And it gets harder and harder. And I just sometimes find it awesome when we're talking to coaches and they can be like, yeah, I've had these guys for a long time. I can't get rid of these guys. They're awesome. So I don't know, share some. You got a good coaching staff. You want to share some of the thing about those guys?
So fortunate. Yeah, I mean, Claude Seibert, he's approaching 700 wins at the JV level. He's been there 41, 42 years. Phil Seibert has been with me since day one, year 14. Chuck Wolfel has won a state title at Park Falls. He's been with us since 2018. And then Alex Bloom and Hunter Seibert, 2 former players that are do our JV2, JV3. So it's great, and we have such a rapport. And I was even talking to Chuck today. It's like you made. It's okay to disagree, right? You're throwing stuff out there. And but we're going to do commitment very well, right? So they completely understand. They may throw something out there, and I'll just say no, and we're committed to not, or we. Or I have to have the humility that this is better. It's like the 7 dysfunctions of a team, right? Well, it's okay to have dysfunction, right? It's okay to disagree, because that's something out of that's going to come positive, and we can rib each other, we can give each other a hard time, and I know they say cliches and long-winded, and that's perfectly fine, and I can hear Chuck in my ear already ripping on me, but it's great. I'm very, very thankful. The knowledge that they have. I'm the luckiest guy to be able to work with them each day.
Well, you can see it on the sidelines when they're pulling kids aside, that those kids listen, right? Their eyes and they're nodding and they're listening, and at the same time, it's just when the dance starts to happen, it's in unison. You may feel that little moments of stress and hesitation and decide to take an idea or trash it, but you see like a nice dance going on at the sidelines, which shows that staff is functioning at a high level. So good to mention those guys.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, I know you have the 3 games remaining, but let's look ahead. How do you feel about this team going into the playoffs? Obviously, it's always the thing about this bracket every year is you could have a team that's ranked number 1 in the state. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
You could be a seed that's number 3 or number 4. It's going to be hard. But at the same time, if you play well, you have an opportunity. It feels like as though a lot of these. I was looking at a lot of the teams in your bracket. It's who performs when the lights are bright in the playoffs.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've played Stratford in 3 straight regional finals, right? We've played Auburndale in 2 straight. So, and we've talked about this in years past. To beat a team 3 times, to beat a 22-win team once is hard, right? And that's what you're going to face teams with 20-some wins, right? But to answer your first question, I like where we're at, right? Your whole goal in all this, and Jeff, is to play your best when it matters most, right? And that's all you can do, right? And we've played our best when it's mattered most and lost, right? But all you can do is play your best, right? So we're trending to that. Confidence is key. And we'll tell our guys it's not a must win, it's a must execute. Go out there and play to the best of your ability, execute to the best of your ability. But you're going to play really good teams. If it shakes out the way we're thinking, maybe we're the 4, maybe Phillips is a 5. You got a team coming in who's already won a playoff game. That 4-5 is a crapshoot as it is. And if you're fortunate enough to get by that, then you're probably playing in Auburndale on the road. And then so you know what you have to get through. I think you hit it on the head, Chad. It's going to be hard, but if you get through, you got a chance. And, hopefully you give yourself your best chance to get through.
Do you tweak a lot of here, the way I look at it is the same coaches have been around a lot. Mm-hmm. You guys know each other so well. I mean, you're always warring for it at the top of that conference, those 3 teams in particular, between you and Auburndale and Stratford. It's hard because I'm assuming you're like, gotta have confidence in your system and the guys and what we're doing. But do you question yourself to throw a wrinkle in there, or don't you? Or do you say, hey, we're going to uphold and best person, what's the thought process when you start seeing these teams so many times coached by the same guys with similar systems and you know each other so well? Mm-hmm. Is there any tweak in philosophy, or is it all just at the end of the day, we are what we are as Marathon and we're going to go do what we do and that's it? Or do you think of something like, I might tweak this a little bit and throw one of those guys a little surprise or not?
Yeah, or certainly. I mean, you have to do what you do well, right? Yeah. You can't be who you're not. But you're also out there thinking of ways that you can do. You think last year Chad had the boxing 1 in the sectional, and we've done some different things offensively or defensively throughout. They're not wholesale changes, but yeah, you definitely have to have a wrinkle. Maybe they have a couple different inbounds plays, a couple different sets. Maybe they got some zone options in there. But certainly, when you're playing a team 3 different times that is as quality as they are, pending your personnel, you probably have some arrows in the quiver.
I imagine that, knowing that all these games tend to go down to 1 possession, if you can find that 1 possession, you're going to use it.
Right. If you can steal possession, yeah.
Anything else for Coach?
Well, that's the thing. We talk about, and we said it right at the start, what assumption is. They have that solid junior class, and I've seen them play real well with people, and I've seen them kind of disappear, and I don't watch them enough to pass judgment on the scores. What do you think you're going to see out of them Friday?
You're going to see a highly motivated team, and we'll tell our guys, whatever their best is, we're getting it Friday night. Their home floor, Friday night home game before the playoffs, we're getting it, right? And then, Schlafer's he's a first-team all-league player, and you got some guys who can shoot it. A lot of experience now going into their 2nd and 3rd year. And then it's about us, right? You're playing to how good can you get this thing, right? And, obviously you're preparing for assumption. You got to go to their place and win. But a lot of it is also who can we become, right? How good can we get this thing and play at a high level that hopefully for more consistent 36 minutes gets you through.
Well, look forward to it. 7 o'clock airtime right here on WXCO. You gonna come down to Assumption?
We'll see. He
says he hasn't seen him. You can come.
I haven't seen him. I don't know if that's an invitation. That's live on air. That's like a credible contract. I'm in, baby.
I would love to have you come by. It was fun.
As we all say, we got to check with the boss.
There you go.
That's true.
I mean, it was so good last Friday. We'll do it again this Friday.
I will see.
We'll have you do the pregame interview like I told you last time.
That scared me.
We played pretty well with you in the gym, so I invite you too.
Coach Adam Jacobson, Marathon Red Raiders. Hey, it's always a pleasure having you on board. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Coming up next, we'll have our student-athlete guest for this week from Wausau West, senior Paige Anderson. That's in just a moment here on 98.9 WXCO.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible, because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction, 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Grass, I'm Chad Holmes, and very happy to welcome into studio our student-athlete guest for this week from Wausau West High School senior Paige Anderson. Paige, thanks for coming by.
Hi, thank you for having me.
First, I want to ask you, because you've had experience. You've been on the varsity for 3 years. Mm-hmm. How have you changed as a player since you started playing varsity basketball back as a sophomore to here now? We're coming down the stretch, heading to the playoffs in your senior year.
Yeah, I think definitely I've gained a lot more confidence as the seasons have gone on. My freshman year, I came off of 3 knee surgeries, and a lot of it for me was knowing that I was capable of scoring and I was capable of playing the game, but I really lacked confidence in the sense where I didn't know if my knees were going to hold up, and I didn't know where I stood on the team anymore. So it's mostly been a confidence thing for me and just building connections with new coaches and new players and everyone that comes into the program.
We got to ask about 3 knee surgeries, because obviously that is just you talk about adversity. That's a lot of adversity, especially for a young person being a freshman. Could you talk about what happened? Number one, were these all based on the same injury, or is it just a fact of trying to get things right? Could you maybe give us a little background on what happened during that time in your life?
Right, sure. It started back in 5th grade. I had my kneecaps would dislocate, so it was like a reoccurring injury that would go on, and I did a lot of PT for it. I was weightlifting, trying to prevent injury, and it just kept happening. I mean, it was always my right knee, and then as soon as my left knee dislocated one day in practice, we knew that we just had to get surgery and get them fixed. So I had patellar stabilization reconstruction surgery on both my knees, and then I had to go back, and I was set back a couple more months from recovery because I had to get a scope done to remove buildup in my knee.
Well, I was going to add, as much as it's it's never easy to be injured because it's boring. You got to sit there, watch practice, or can't participate in what you want to do. Mm-hmm. And then it's like you already harped on the mental aspect as well as the physical rehab part of it. Is there any benefits? Does it make you a stronger person in terms of appreciating things more? Does it make you understand that you can overcome hardships that will help you later on in life when something throws you a curveball? Does it help in that sense to benefit it as much as, not that you want to be injured, but it helps make you a stronger person?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was a really big character building time for me. I mean, I figured out a lot of what I wanted to do. Up until that point, I wanted to play college basketball. Basketball was a dream, and I got to talk to a lot of nurse practitioners and other people that I met along the way, and I discovered new things that I loved. I had to find my identity in other things other than basketball and having sports. I think having to sit out and watch all my teammates doing what I wanted to be doing and what I loved really gave me new perspective to like be happy for other people and build other people up in that time when I was also needing other people to build me up, knowing like in recovery and stuff like that, you would have to build relationships in order to make a good comeback and be satisfied with how you feel about yourself and those injuries.
Again, we're talking to Paige Anderson from Wausau West, our student-athlete guest here on the Big High School Sports Show. Let's talk a little bit about this season, because as I said before we came in, it was a tough start. I think you lost your first 6 games in a row, and there were some rather lopsided scores. But since the calendar has turned, your team is 6-6, and it may not sound like great, but the way the team started, what kept the girls, the team, the coaches going in that point? Because it can be easy. I imagine for someone like you, it's probably not easy to get off the treadmill because you've gone through so much in order to be back on the court. But boy, when things are not going well, it can sometimes snowball. How were you and your teammates able to take that moment maybe and turn things around and get better in the second half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning of the season, I think we were all pretty frustrated because we're all really competitive, but I think a lot of it had to do with fluidity on and off the court. We were able to all connect off the court and have more fun together. So when we started having more fun and we could trust each other on the court and we had confidence in each other and ourselves, I think we started to play a little bit better. And even some of the games at the beginning of the season, I think we all agreed that we felt like we could have played a lot better. We just had some stuff to figure out along the way.
And you have a little downtime, which I think is hard. I just think it's hard for players because you want to, right now you want to practice less and play more as the games are more fun at the end of the day for most people. And I think that's sometimes a tough sequence to go through because the next game that you guys have up is a playoff game, correct?
Yes.
At Hudson. And so I think one of the things that is difficult to do is to bide that time. But, just self-reflecting and looking at your team right now before you roll into that game, and you got plenty of time, I guess, to work on some things yet. What do you really think is something that your team is doing well on right now that will help you in that game against Hudson?
I think we're doing some strategizing and reflecting on our game a lot of the time and trying to build confidence knowing that we can beat good teams that are tough. I think we're trying to implement a good amount of fun and strategy as the season is sort of winding down and we're figuring out especially for the seniors. I mean, we have 4 of them this year. We want to enjoy our last games. We want to feel good about how we play and feel good about the program and the relationships that we build. So I think we're definitely trying to have fun, but also be productive in the practices that we're having. And
looking at that, if you look with this amount of time, I mean, you get the other flip side is you get a lot of prep time for the next playoff opponent. You can look at them a lot more, whether that's more film for the coaches, whether that's more time for you guys to get some stuff. Have you guys started to look at Hudson already, and do you know anything about that team yet?
I think some of the players individually we've been looking at Hudson. I'm not quite sure what the coaches' plans are yet. We've been focusing a lot on our fundamentals and our plays and a lot of scrimmaging and live action that we want to keep working on because not having games, I mean, you want to keep playing in practice in game-like situations to stay on your game, but yeah.
And you faced them holiday time, and I found that holiday, and I mentioned the fact that since the New Year started, playing better basketball, that was the last game of 2024. I remember watching your game the first day at the Marshfield tournament against Oshkosh West, and to be honest with you, I was doing hockey that day. I got home and it was halftime, and you were down by quite a bit. The second half of that game against Oshkosh West, my thought was, how could you be behind? Because you played really well in that second half. When you look at when the team is playing well as opposed to when the team is not playing well, is there anything that you and your teammates have been able to put a finger on? Because, again, that Oshkosh West second half, I thought, boy, you were just able to run the offense, score exceptionally well. It looked like a really solid basketball team. But then there's been halves, like the first half and maybe the second day of that tournament. What have you been able to learn over the course of a rather long basketball season about when things are going well and maybe when things are not going well?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we have slow starts, we all sort of fall back. We all have our own individual ways of falling back into what's comfortable because you feel we're down, we need to score, I need to do this, I maybe don't want the ball right now. And I feel like when we can stop focusing so much on our own game and really focus on our dynamic as a team and we need to run the offense, we need to trust the process, we need to be able to get things done, I think a lot of it comes down to having confidence in your teammates and not just yourself, because it's 5 players on the court at the same time. You can't play with just 1 or 2.
Talk about your teammates. Obviously, you said you got a group of 4 seniors. Sounds like you guys have worked on trying to be great teammates, not just on the court, but off the court. Could you talk a little bit about some of your teammates and what they bring to the table for your team?
Yeah, I mean, with our group of seniors, we're all pretty close. We're friends. We've known each other. We've been playing together since elementary school. So it's been a big season for us. I think over the years we've had on and off like cliques and relationship changes. But over the season, I mean, we're all getting along in our own ways. Like Harper Mead, her and I have really good chemistry during practice. We have a lot of fun together. I love laughing with her. And me and Ayla have been playing together since forever. We played on AAU teams together. We've traveled together. We've had close relationships. We've really built a lot of good relationships. Me and Iris as well. I've known Iris longer than I've known any of the girls. But I think sometimes we have to keep our game out of our relationship too, because if we get too on each other in the middle of a game, or if we get really competitive with each other, I mean, it can be hard for our relationships. But
let me jump in real fast, because I think people underestimate how important chemistry is. Because you may come out to a game at 7:15 on a Tuesday or Friday night and just see what's going on, X's and O's and the like. You've been around basketball a long time. How important is chemistry? And is it sometimes difficult as well to, when things maybe get off the tracks a little bit, to not let it affect what happens on the court?
I think to an extent, chemistry is really important, but I think individually as a player, like you can only control what you're responsible for on the court, and if you have issues off the court, you need to be able to like make the good game time decision. Like if someone's open, you have to pass the ball, you have to make the good play and keep it off the court. Obviously, it helps a lot more when you're all getting along and you have the fluidity of we can all play together, we can all be happy for each other and stuff, but I think chemistry is important to an extent, but characters has a lot more to do with how well you can play and keep it off the court.
And being we ask a lot of the seniors when they come on, one of the things is, since you've logged a lot of hours in the West girls basketball program, and you talked about all the friendships and hanging out and playing since our years in youth basketball. I'm assuming I know the answer to this, but what are you going to miss most when that the final buzzer goes off and you're done? What are you going to miss most about your high school basketball career?
I feel like definitely when something like basketball's over, you look back and you remember most of the positive things and not the negative. So I feel like a lot of the times assists are what me and my teammates look back on, where it's like, oh, I felt so good for you in that moment where you had this great shot. Like, do you remember that one time on the court we did this? But off the court, seeing each other every day and just the conversations we have during warm-ups and on the bus rides and before games, like braiding hair and just getting along, like all the pre-game rituals that we do. I mean, that's probably what I'll miss the most.
Again, we're talking to Paige Anderson from Wausau West, senior for the Warrior girls basketball team here on 98.9 WXCO. Stepping away from the court, what's your favorite class in school?
Science.
Do you hope to use science in the future?
Yeah, I'm going to nursing, so it's a health science field. So currently I'm in advanced anatomy and physiology at the Tech, and it's a tough class, but I really love learning about all the different body systems and how everything works together and just science in general.
Did your injuries lead you down that path?
Yes, I do believe so. I mean, my mom's a nurse. My sister is graduating nursing school right now. Yeah, I mean, I talked to a nurse practitioner at Bone and Joint the first time I got injured, and she related to me in the sense where she had the same knee injuries. And she goes down this path, you can be a nurse practitioner, and a lot of people see nurse practitioners as doctors today. So you can make a really good salary, and there's a lot of flexibility in nursing as well. So it's a really good career path to go down. I mean, being interested in my own body and having to learn about it at a young age. I mean, we talked to a lot of nutritionists and physical therapists and personal trainers and stuff. So yeah, I mean, learning about all the muscles and how this affects this was really interesting for me. It really sparked that interest.
And have you decided on your school yet, where you're going to look for that nursing degree?
Yeah, I'm doing 2 years at NTC because Wausau West has a dual enrollment program, so I've been taking full college course loads all year. in addition to high school classes.
After that, I know sometimes people have I get it, it's college time, so sometimes you have your plan totally set, and other times you're like, I just want to make it through this stage and then play. Do you have, after you finish up with the tech, are you into the workforce, you're going to go on to more schooling for that nurse practitioner?
I think right away I'll get experience as a RN and be nursing, and I'm interested in travel nursing to open up different opportunities and exploring new places and really getting good experience. And yeah, I think later on I'm interested in maybe getting bachelor's and like your NP and stuff like that. But for a while, I'll take some time to just get experience.
Sounds like you're busy with sports and school. When you're away from that, if you want to maybe get away from it all, what do you like to do for fun?
I like to read. I like to hang out with my friends. I do nails sometimes just for fun. I like working out.
Do you have a favorite type of reading that you do?
I like realistic fiction. Otherwise, I like historical fiction.
Do you have a favorite rival?
Rival?
Yeah.
Like team?
Yeah. Is there a team that you developed that you really look forward to playing?
DC Everest.
It's interesting. A lot of West kids are starting to say Everest a lot. But anything else, Jeff?
Well, do you have a hated? Do you have a place you hate to play in too, or a place you love to play in other than your own gym? Because I know sometimes players are like, "I'm going there. I've always had the best games there," or "I hate going there because the student section is just yelling at me all the time."
I don't like the Marshfield gym that much. The
Nobody
lighting in
does.
there. The lighting in there is weird. I don't know.
It's this big, and the fans are so far away.
Yeah, and there's a lot of space behind the backboards too.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah. I think we've always had a good game at Merrill, so.
Oh, yeah.
And you play other sports?
I used to. I don't anymore just because school sports are a really big time commitment. But
anything else before our final question?
I'm trying to think. I had one more. It would have been, we'll give some props. Do you have a favorite teacher at school?
Yeah.
Favorite teacher? Oof.
I'm sorry if that puts you don't know. If that's too much on the spot. You've already listed your favorite class, but if you got a favorite teacher, we'll give him some props.
Mr. Richard, he used to be a health teacher, but now he's like an associate principal. So he's my favorite teacher, but he's not really a teacher anymore.
Gotcha.
Years ago, he was in the booth with me.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, so we always ask our seniors a question, and especially somebody that's gone through the program and been varsity, and obviously with the experiences that you've had. But for a freshman who's just joining Wausau West in their girls basketball program, what piece of advice would you give based on your experiences that you would be able to pass along for them to think about as they start their journey?
Definitely don't be afraid to talk to new people when you get into the high school program. I think sometimes there's a divide between like upperclassmen and underclassmen, but if you can learn everyone's names right off the bat and build those connections, that's what's going to make a fun season for you. And it's easier to have confidence and play well when you're having fun. So build relationships. I would not be scared. Just be confident what you can do and do your best.
Fantastic. Well, good luck on trying to make this playoff run as deep as possible to keep that high school basketball career going. Congratulations on battling through so many injuries and to be able to have a really good high school basketball career, and best of luck as you go into your future as well.
Thank you.
That's Paige Anderson, Wausau West Warrior High School girls basketball senior. We'll come back, take a look ahead on what to look forward to in the next week as we continue and have our final moments here on the Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
State tournament season is upon us, and girls hoops playoff brackets are now set. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells. More high school sports news after this. You may have heard of Just a Game Fieldhouse in Wisconsin Dells, one of the country's premier destinations for youth sports and events, but did you know that Just a Game does so much more? Just a Game also delivers end-to-end apparel, equipment, and event solutions with their state-of-the-art screen printing and embroidery facility that can help with branding for your team and business items, including uniforms, apparel, and more. Just a Game also offers digital services that include a cashless digital platform and event live streaming. Just a Game has also added a second brand new facility in Reedsburg. Find more information at justagame.com. Winter sport tournament time is upon us, including wrestling regionals last weekend that featured the first ever separate girls regional meets on Friday night. In other postseason news, the first state championships of the season will be contested on Friday and Saturday at Waukesha South High School for the 101st WIAA Boys Swimming and Diving Championships. In other tournament news, the WIAA released the 2025 girls basketball seeds and matchups on Sunday's bracket reveal show, which featured WSN's Norbert Durs providing analysis and commentary. You can head over to wissports.net to get the full brackets, including the path to state for your favorite team. Regional play for girls hoops starts Tuesday, February 25th, with most teams wrapping up their regular season play this week. The girls basketball state tournament is set for March 13th through the 15th. Boys basketball still has a couple weeks remaining, with playoff brackets released on Sunday. Before then, there's some huge conference showdowns coming up with league title implications. In the Badger Large, Wanakee and Fort Atkinson are tied atop the standings and will meet up this Tuesday for control of the crown. Similarly, Durand, Arkansas and Spring Valley share the Dunn St. Croix lead currently and will battle Tuesday night in Spring Valley. This has been a wissports.net Minute. Check us out online at wissports.net.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction here on 98.9 WXCO with Jeff Grass. I'm Chad Holmes. And we had two good ones. We always know Coach Jacobson will come in and do a great job. And then have Paige on, really interesting as well.
Yeah, they did a great job, again, giving insights into their program and kind of what they're seeing down the stretch here.
Well, let's talk about what's going on in high school hockey. The playoffs are underway. Last night, DC Everest earned a 5-0 win over Wisconsin Rapids. So that means that the number 6 seeded Evergreens travel to number 3 seeded New Richmond tomorrow night. That New Richmond team, a very big and tough team. I had a chance to see them. But Everest, with great goaltending with Griffin Pinnell, the opportunity as well with Cole Van Slyke and Thomas Passano to light the lamp. New Richmond's goalie was not impressive in my mind. I'm sure they're not listening, but I think Everest has a big edge in goal. But, boy, that's still a tough New Richmond team. That'll be an interesting game. The winner of that game moves on to sectionals next Tuesday against the winner of the game between 7th seeded Superior and number 2 seeded Wausau West. Superior defeated Thomas Sparta 5-2 last night. They will take on the Warriors at Marathon Park. 6:50 airtime, 7 o'clock opening face-off, live right here on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Wausau West in the second game of the season had defeated Superior 5-3. Top half of the bracket, Stevens Point still waiting to see who they're going to play because last night's game between Eau Claire North and Chippewa Falls was postponed because Chi High has a rule if school is canceled, can't play. They're on the ice right now. So Stevens Point will wait to see who wins that game. And also in that bracket, Eau Claire Memorial taking on Hudson. Division 2 sectional number 1. Action gets underway tomorrow night. Mosinee, number 2 seed, will take on number 7 seeded Medford. With a win, Mosinee advances to a sectional Tuesday night against either number 3 seeded Lakeland or number 6 seeded Sean O'Bondewell. Number 5 seed Antigo will take on number 4 seeded Northern Pines tomorrow night. And the winner will move on to take on either number 1 seed Tomahawk or number 8 seeded Rhinelander. Tomahawk, number 1 ranked team in the state in that Division 2. They beat Mosinee 3-1 in the Great Northern Conference Championship game this past weekend as well. And then finally, girls hockey. Central Wisconsin Storm get a first-round bye, so they're not in action until Tuesday night of next week. They will take on the winner of Northern Pines and Wisconsin Valley Union in a sectional semifinal coming up on Tuesday night. And, Jeff, as we look ahead, obviously, girls basketball playoffs will begin next week. Boys basketball, they will find out their brackets on Sunday, but conference championships on the line. As we look ahead, anything jumping out to you, starting with the Valley?
Well, with the Valley boys, there's 2 games that I'm interested in. Next Tuesday, I believe, didn't Marshfield to go to state last year in the sectional somewhere they lost to Neenah, right?
Yep.
Who made it down. They play Neenah. They're at Neenah next Tuesday. I think that'll be an interesting one to see where they stand second time around this year. And I think just jockeying for some more position is the East Spash game on Friday. I think those are kind of the big ones, unless you see something else that sticks out for the Valley boys.
Stevens Point East game, and I'm really curious as well because Spash beat them like 81-38 just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And I'm curious to see if East is able to bounce back and say, hey, you can't do that to us twice in a row.
And I think Nebgezik's going to be back, which is going to strengthen them.
That will be huge. Great Northern Conference, and Mosinee and Rhinelander Friday's got to be the game.
Yep, that's the big one there, jockeying for position with Rhinelander just up one game in the win column because Mosinee hasn't played as many conference games yet. I think that'll kind of be that true test is we talked about it. Rhinelander kind of gets by, wins the games, but just does enough to get done. And Mosinee plays really good non-conference.
And they've been good against Mosinee recently.
Yes, they have.
mean, that's been interesting.
It's just a war. It's been a conference rivalry over the year, and we'll see how that pans out for those two teams with similar overall records, similar conference records.
Merriwood South boys, it's a fun week because they got 2 nights of battle within the league.
Right, and I like on Monday is there's some of the big games. You got Auburndale over at Stratford. I think Marathon has to hit Auburndale one more time down the stretch to see where those games stay at and to see if there can be any upsets too. Like Coach Jacobson was saying, you can't bypass any teams just because they're at a lower rank. They all have the capabilities to sneak up on and get you in a competitive one.
Absolutely. So anything else on the boys' side that jumps out in any of the other conferences? I don't see really too much.
Wittenberg playing Iola on Friday.
Oh, yeah, you're actually right.
I think that'll be a good one to see.
Because Whitburn actually came from behind the first time in Wittenberg from a pretty big deficit to win the game.
And the first meeting was won 54-52 the first time they met back, I think either early January, somewhere around there. And they just kind of got by Iola, and now they got to go over there and beat them. Because they don't want to drop, so that'd be 3 in a row if they drop that game.
And girls basketball playoffs, Division I, before we get together again next week. DC Everest, the only game against Appleton West, as we talked about earlier. I think a good opportunity for the Evergreens to continue to build brick by brick their program. Division II, Merrill makes a long trek to New Richmond, a 9-8 game, which is always again, it's been a struggle for the Jays this season. I imagine they would love to find a way to get a W in the playoffs.
And those 8-9 ones are always a tough one. You can have that home court advantage, which maybe gives you a slight edge, but they're just so closely matched usually in those 8-9 games.
Also next week, before we get back together, not a lot of Edgar against Colby Tuesday night, 7-10, winner to take on McDonald, and lots of action in Division 5. Newman Catholic, a number 12 seed, next Tuesday at number 5 Greenwood, number 13 Athens, at number 4 Elman Bancroft. Also, again, it's always interesting. And you talked about this. You know it better than anyone when a team like Newman, when a team like Assumption, whether it's boys or girls, they bang heads in the conference. Newman may be a 12 seed, but who knows? I think they're much more tested than a team like Greenwood.
Well, you'd like to think so. Just it builds a strength of schedule on you when you're playing these teams, and you have definitely that in your favor because you've been walloped on in your conference, and you get to slide to a lower division. I think it's great.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.